Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tami Stackelhouse, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stackelhouse, and this is episode 138. In today's episode, I want to take a break from all of the interviews and everything that I've been sharing for the past few weeks and just do an episode where I am speaking from my heart to you. And I want to talk about something that I recently mentioned actually in another episode, which is how do we find balance between accepting our fibromyalgia and living in the body that we have right now, today, while still holding the hope and working towards finding ways to feel better. It can sometimes feel like being stuck a little bit between a rock and a hard place, right? Balancing between acceptance and that hope of feeling better. And there's a few specific pitfalls that I find people falling into that I want to talk about with you today, and also just how we have to hold both of these ideas at the same time. We can't be stuck in either end. We can't only accept where we are and then get stuck there and never get better. And we also can't only hope and focus on the future and live in denial of the body we have right now today. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, I love using the example of a GPS. When you have a GPS, and they are so common these days. I'm old enough to remember when they were rare or we didn't have them at all. But these days, pretty much every phone has a GPS built into it. And in order for that GPS to give you good instructions and get you to where you want to go, it needs to know two things. First of all, of course, it has to know where you're going, right? You type in the address or tell it where you want to go. It has to be able to locate that and know where that is. And it has to know where you are, right? Because the directions to get to New York City from where I am in Seattle versus where you might be wherever you live, they're going to be different. If you're in Florida, you have to go north, but if I go north, I end up in Canada. We have to know both things. We have to know where we are right now, and we have to know where we're going. And that is how I think of this balance between acceptance, that's where you are right now, and the hope of feeling better, which is where you're going. Now, we talk a lot about GPS in my house. My husband is a computer chip designer, and he has worked on a lot of GPS systems. So this is something that we talk about often. Another interesting thing about GPS is that it doesn't have to be off by very much in order to put you someplace where you don't intend on going. One of the projects Scott was working on, it was GPS to help sounds funny, but to help the astronauts connect up with the space station. And it needed to be accurate because just the tiniest percentage of a degree off means they're out in outer space somewhere and not at the space station at all. And that can be the same thing with your goals in life, where you want to go. If I take off from Seattle here and I'm headed towards New York City and I'm just a little bit off, I might end up in West Virginia, or I might end up in Canada, right? So with your life, as you're thinking about where you want to go, this isn't about you. I know you perfectionists. I can hear you right now. This is not about being perfect. This is about being accurate about where you want to end up, where you want to go, and making those little corrections along the way, right? Because the secret with Scott getting those astronauts where they needed to go was not about having a perfect trajectory. It was about making micro adjustments continually. Because, of course, there's outside forces coming to play there as the rocket is taking off. Maybe there's winds or whatever there might be that is going to push you off your course. Life happens. Your fibro gets in a flare. You're diagnosed with a new illness. You have a new stressor in your life. A stressor is gone from your life. All of those things change your trajectory. And so we need to then make those micro adjustments so that you can end up where you want to go. So this really is not about being perfect. It's not possible, right? You can't set it and forget it, as some people say. You are continually making little adjustments. Just like when you're driving your car, right? My car, my new Jeep, oh my gosh. The one thing I don't like about my car is that it has this beep that goes off if it thinks you're not holding on to the steering wheel. I happen to live where there are a lot of really straight roads, and I have perfect alignment right now because it's a new car. And so lots of times the car thinks that I'm not holding on to the steering wheel and it beeps at me. Because a normal driving situation, there's some tension on that wheel while you're moving it back and forth, left and right, so that you can go straight. You're making those little adjustments to stay within your lane and go the direction you want to go. So we need to look at our lives that way and our fibromyalgia that way. We need to continually assess. We need to continually make those little adjustments as we go so that we can get to where we want to be. Now, again, using that GPS analogy there, we have to know where we are. And your GPS doesn't make judgments. Your GPS doesn't say, oh my God, is that where you are? You've got to be kidding me. That's where you are? No, it doesn't say that about where you're going either, right? Your GPS is just taking information. And so we need to be a little bit more like our GPS and say, okay, here's where I'm at. For real, this is where I'm at. And I'll tell you, when I started really working on getting better, my GPS, my body GPS, I could only leave the house once a week, really, if I wanted to not feel bad, right? Sure, I was capable of leaving the house more than once a week. I was permitted to leave the house more than once a week. But when I did, it would put me in a flare-up and it would set me back. By accepting where I was at, the reality of the situation, that I just did not have the energy or my pain wasn't managed well enough, I really could not leave the house more than once a week. By denying that, holds me back from eventually getting better. So when I finally discovered this is my sweet spot, this is where my body is happy, this is where I can actually start feeling better, then I was able to accept that was my reality. Was it hard to accept that? Oh, yes. Of course it was. It's hard to think about being in a position where you can only leave the house once a week. I remember, and I've talked about this in other episodes, but I remember the day that I realized I needed to file for disability. I had company coming over the next day. I was trying to clean the house. My husband, who is usually extremely supportive, just was not at this particular moment. We all have our moments, so I'll give him that one. And so I was trying to clean by myself. I was in the same pajamas that I got up in. This was at the end of the day. And those were also the pajamas that I'd been wearing for the last week. It was so hard. I was sitting on the stairs while I was trying to vacuum them because I couldn't stand and vacuum them like a normal person because I'm exhausted and I'm in so much pain. And I just started crying. And I thought, I can't take care of myself. Look at me. I'm in the same pajamas I've worn for a week. I haven't taken a shower. I'm a disaster. I can't take care of my house. I can't even clean my stairs. I have company coming. maybe this is what disability is all about. Maybe this is part of what disability looks like. And so that's when I started exploring that. But it's that acceptance of that reality of accepting that this is really where I'm at right now. This really is my life right now. It's not me being lazy. It's not me being a slob and not caring about my house. I honestly could not do it. And just we hear about in addiction, when you finally hit that bottom and you realize that you are addicted and here's my real situation, then we can move forward. Then we can move forward. And just to be clear, I'm not saying fibromyalgia is addiction. It's not at all, but it's that same moment of acceptance and clarity of this is who I am. This is what my body is capable of or not capable of. And this is where I am. That acceptance, I think, is very similar, a very similar situation. Now, of course, as I said earlier, we don't want to get stuck in acceptance. And I see this so often. People accept where they are. They accept I have fibromyalgia. They accept I can only leave the house once a week. And then they just stay there, right? You may have even found yourself from time to time accepting something and then not testing to see whether it can be improved. Maybe you've just accepted the relationships that you have in your life and haven't thought about how you could improve them or even if they could be improved. Maybe you've just accepted your body's physical limitations. Maybe you aren't very strong because you've lost muscle with fibromyalgia. Maybe you feel like you just are never going to be able to move your body and exercise. If you accept those things and don't ever test them, don't ever move forward from them, don't ever try to improve them, then that's staying stuck. And I don't want you to be stuck. I don't want anyone with fibromyalgia to get stuck in that place. It's where we have to start. Absolutely. We have to be honest. We have to accept the bodies that we live in right now today. We have to accept our current reality. But we don't want to stay there. We want to move forward. And by the way, I think that things like support groups are often very good at helping you with that acceptance piece because there's other people there like you, and you can learn from them, and their acceptance of you eventually allows you to accept yourself. I think that's very, very good. But I think one of the challenges that comes with a lot of support groups is that they stay stuck in that acceptance piece and miss out on the feeling better part of things. Not saying that about all support groups. I actually ran a support group for a long time, and we really intentionally formed our group to be a group that would help people move forward. And the more educational support groups do tend to be more like that. If you're looking for a support group, that's one of the big things to look at. Is this group just about helping people accept where they are, accepting that they have fibromyalgia, feeling better about the fact that they have fibromyalgia? Or is this a support group that's actually about helping people get better? Because that's really what you want. So we've accepted where we are. We don't want to stay stuck there. So what do? We educate ourselves. We try new things. Sometimes we get a guide, right? Like your GPS is a guide telling you turn here, go straight, take the next left. You can have somebody that can guide you too. And that's a lot of what I do as a coach with my clients, is looking at really just walking with people in their lives and saying, could we have done this any differently? And if the answer is no, awesome, accept it. I can help you accept that. If the answer is yes, we could have done that different, then I can help you strategize and plan for how do we do this differently next time? And how do we then begin to change both how we feel and how we interact with ourselves and with our bodies? Now, there is, of course, the danger in focusing on that hope of feeling better. I see this from time to time with my clients as well, where they are so focused and so determined to feel better that they're actually living in a bit of denial about their reality. Maybe they're focused on getting back to being able to do activities they used to do. I see this often in people who were athletes before fibromyalgia. They want to get back to doing that. And part of acceptance is accepting that maybe you never will, or maybe you will, and it'll just look different, or maybe it'll look the same. But the acceptance part is accepting that unknown and allowing your body to be who she needs to be and become who she needs to become. So the hope of feeling better can be a dangerous trap as well because of that denial piece where we're so focused either on the past or on the future and we're ignoring our present reality. And we need both. We need that present reality. The other thing that I see with people who get stuck in the hope of feeling better is actually there's 2 or 3 more things. So the first one is they are continually trying new things. And it's good to try new things, but you also have to stay with things long enough to know if they're going to work. There are lots of treatment options, supplements, therapies, things that take time. Maybe you decide you're going to try a new supplement to help you sleep, and you take it for a week, and you're like, oh, I'm not sleeping any better. Next, what's the next thing I can try? That's not long enough to know. Not long enough to know if it's working or not working, because there's so many things that affect sleep, for example. So we need to give things long enough. One of my coaches, one of the people who coaches me, one of the analogy that she uses is it's like they're swimming in the middle of a swimming pool. So I want you to imagine yourself. You're in the middle of a swimming pool. You've got a blindfold on, and you're trying to find your way out. So you swim one direction for a little while, don't find the wall, turn, swim another way. You're not finding the wall. You keep swimming in different directions. Basically, you're just swimming around randomly in the middle of the pool, where if you could just pick one direction and keep swimming, you'll find the edge of the swimming pool. It's there. You just need to focus and go in one direction long enough. And I see that exact same thing with a lot of my clients. They are trying just the next thing that they hear about, right? Maybe on one coaching call, we make a plan. Okay, we're going to go try this thing. We're going to try it for 90 days and see how it works. And then the very next coaching call, they come in with questions. Oh, I heard about this thing. Should I try that? I'm like, wait a minute. I thought we were trying this other thing. So don't be afraid to pick something and try it long enough. Now, different things take different amounts of time. Some supplements you can tell right away. Other supplements, they might take weeks to know. Other supplements, they might take you months before you really see the benefits. In episode 21, when Dr. Jared Younger was talking about low-dose naltrexone, he said you need to give that at least 6 months. So don't give up on things too early. It's also important to know how long you should give things before you give up on them. And if you don't know, find somebody who does. That is one of the things that our coaches are trained in, is how long to give these things a try before you know if it's going to work, and what tweaks to make sure that you're giving things a fair try. Like different times of day, taking things with food, without food. There's lots of things that we can try. Different therapies, like sometimes it's the practitioner that matters, and we just need to find a new practitioner before we give up on the therapy. But give things long enough. Don't be so focused on the feeling better that you give up on things too quickly. Another thing that I see with people who are stuck in the hope of feeling better is that there's this sort of frantic energy that is just looking and searching and looking and searching for the next thing to try. Actually talked about this with Dr. Andrea Moore in my conversation with her just a few episodes ago. And she talked about the fact that the science actually shows us that when you are focused on trying to eliminate or decrease your pain, you actually make the pain worse. Like your brain is focused on the area, it actually builds new nerve endings, new nerve connections. So you actually feel more pain because you're so focused on eliminating that pain. And I see that with my clients too. They're so focused on wanting to feel better that they actually ramp up their nervous system. They build up this frantic energy. And one of the problems with fibromyalgia is we get stuck in fight or flight. When you are ramping yourself up over this, I've got to feel better, I've got to feel better, what can I do, what's the next thing? You can hear me even as I say this, you can probably feel it in your body. That is ramping up your nervous system. That's stirring things up. That's starting to edge us more towards fight or flight. And we need to calm down that frantic energy. Now, sometimes that frantic energy is a sign in and of itself of some of the things that you might need to work on, like some therapies that might be really helpful for you. Just that frantic energy is a good sign for some things. But watch that. That's when you can also tell that you're getting stuck in that hope of feeling better, and you need to lean a little bit more into acceptance. Because acceptance, if you think of them like speeds, acceptance is, if you're clear at one end, it's a dead standstill. You're not moving at all. And the hope of feeling better, if you're all the way at the other end, that's like pedal to the metal going as fast as you can. And we need to be in the middle because we don't want to be stuck and we don't want to be ramping up our fight or flight and our nervous system. Another thing that I see with people who get stuck in the hope of feeling better is that they give up on things that do work, but just work a little bit. Because when you're stuck in the hope of feeling better, what you're actually looking for is the magic bullet, right? You're looking for the thing that's going to make the difference to help you feel better. And it don't work like that, folks. It's a lot of little things that are going to add up. And you've heard me talk about it before. You can get to 100% better with 50 things that only improve your fibromyalgia by 2%. And you can get better if you have 25 things that help you 4%. The little bits do count. We just want to hang on to every single one, and we want to carry those forward with us. And if you're in that frantic space where you're so focused on feeling better, sometimes we miss those. We miss those little improvements, and we pass on them to find something that's going to make a bigger difference. So I encourage you, if you are finding yourself either extreme, if you are very acceptant of where you are right now today, you feel like you're doing pretty good, or even if you feel like you're doing terrible, but this is just the way your life is, I would encourage you to find a little bit more hope. It is possible to feel better than you do right now today. Of course, there's lots of factors in that. The other conditions you might be struggling with, the resources that you have, there's a lot that goes into how much better you can feel. But I am convinced that every single one of us, me included, can feel better than we do right now today. So if you're looking for a little bit more hope, one of the things I would recommend for you to do is to take a look at our Stories of Hope and Healing episodes. We also have our next live Stories of Hope and Healing event coming in just a few weeks. So go to ifcigraduation.com to register, or you can use the link in today's show notes. We'll have that too. Today's show notes are at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/138. You'll be able to register for that. Our graduates are actually in the process of turning in their information for the event right now. So you will see more details on that as we get closer. But register, it's free. Join us, hear their stories, get some hope, learn more about what they've done to feel better, hear real stories from real people. And of course, you can check out the Stories of Hope's episodes here on the podcast for replays of those past live events. And we'll have links to those in today's show notes too, fibromyalgiapodcast.com/138. So if you're finding yourself stuck in acceptance, those are some ways that you can get some hope. Hear other people that are finding ways to feel better. And if you're finding yourself at the other end, if that frantic energy of looking for the next thing, trying the next thing, if that feels like it might be you, then what I would recommend is finding ways to accept where you are right now. Finding ways to calm down your fight or flight, calm down your nervous system, accept where you are right now. Think about what happens if nothing ever changes, because that's what acceptance is about, accepting yourself right now, the body that you live in right now today. And if you already have that hope, then we don't need to focus more on that hope. We need to focus more on the acceptance. So if you'd like some places to start with that, I would recommend starting with episode number 2, way back at the beginning. Your body is not the enemy. I think a lot of times when we're in that frantic space of just looking for the next thing, we do tend to move into this mindset of it's you against your body, you against fibromyalgia, you trying to find ways to change or fix your body. But your body isn't the enemy, and your body wants the same thing that you do. I've also just discussed this idea of acceptance and how to accept your body that you have right now. I've discussed this with Dr. Andrea Moore and Kim Hagel in some recent podcast episodes. So if you just scroll back a bit, you'll see their episodes from just a few weeks ago. And of course, we'll also have that in today's show notes, fibromyalgiapodcast.com/138. And as both Kim and Andrea have said, at a certain point, whether you are feeling stuck in acceptance or stuck in hope, you might need some help. You might need some help to accept where you're at, and you might need help to find some new ways to move forward. And if that's you, where you're doing everything you know how to do and it's just not getting you the results that you want, or if you're struggling to even believe that there could be a different future, then I would recommend scheduling a consultation with a certified fibromyalgia coach. Now, the reason I recommend a certified fibromyalgia coach is because every student and coach has fibromyalgia themselves. And so not only do we understand you, but we have literally been where you are. And we can give you practical tips from our own journeys to find acceptance and to find hope. And every single one of us has also found ways to feel better. So we can also give you practical tips and advice and new ideas from the things that we've tried and the things that have worked for us. If you'd like to schedule a consultation, just go to findafibrocoach.com. There'll also be a link in today's show notes, fibromyalgiapodcast.com/138. And if you go to the podcast website, if you're just in a place where you're just not ready yet to talk to somebody else, you're maybe still need to process everything that I've just shared here today, there's a lot of other resources on the podcast website. When you go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com, you'll see resources in the main menu. There's copies of my books that you can download for free. We also have our free fibromyalgia wellness style quiz. And if you sign up for the complete profile, the complete assessment, that is also for free. You'll get emails. There's about a week's worth of emails that you'll get with tips and tricks and advice and some coaching specifically based on your fibromyalgia wellness style. So again, that is also free. We have a lot of other resources for you out there as well. So absolutely take advantage of those. But at a certain point, you will either be able to figure it out yourself, great, or you're going to need that GPS voice to give you a little bit of guidance and tell you what to try next. Now, as I wrap up for today, for this week's listener shout out, I actually want to share something that one of my students wrote on her class final. I had asked the question about what had changed for you, specifically, how has your idea of self-care changed? And Margot, who gave me permission to share this, she will be graduating and be part of that Stories of Hope and Healing event that I told you about. But this was her answer to that question. Margot said, I believed I was practicing self-care by going to my massage and chiropractor appointments and buying tools to use on my body. I now understand that I was treating my body as an object that I needed to fix and maintain. Self-care is something that must be practiced 24 hours a day, every day, as a partnership with my body. Every decision made throughout the day is motivated by my respect for my body. And as Margot shares that, that's my number one goal right there for each and every one of you, is that you would come into a partnership with your body, that you would accept the body that you're living in right now today. She is magical. She is capable of amazing things. Your body is amazing. And even if you can't love her, as both Kim and Dr. Andrea have said on recent podcast episodes, you can at least respect her because she's amazing. She keeps you breathing while you're sleeping, right? She turns the food you eat into energy. You bruise or you have a cut and she heals. She is amazing. You can, at the very least, respect that. Another student of mine said that she had come to a mutual truce with her body. She couldn't get to the point where she loved her body yet, but at least she and her body called a truce and they were able to move forward from there. So I would encourage you to do that. And this is really the core of everything that I teach. Yes, there are things that are really going wrong in your body. And yes, there are things that we need to fix. Of course, we will talk about that. And we also need to fix how we think about our bodies, how we think about our illness, the mindset that we have. Are you focused so much on getting better that it's actually keeping you from getting better? Are you focused so much on your fibromyalgia that you miss focusing on your health? Can you focus on your health instead? These are all things that we talk about in our Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor class, which is what Margot is graduating from. And we talk about a lot of this stuff. Again, if you're interested, come to our Stories of Hope and Healing event. That's actually Margot's graduation and her classmates' graduation. And you can learn more about the class and their experience as well. If you are interested, that date is Saturday, July 20th is that next event. If you're listening to this episode after the event, no worries. Just go to that same link, ifcigraduation.com, and you'll actually see the replay for the event. We'll also be sharing some of their interviews here on the podcast as well. All right, that wraps up today, and watch in the next couple of episodes. Since we have graduation coming up, we will also be replaying interviews with Margot, with Ileana, with Jeanette. We have an all international graduating class this time, which is super exciting for me. So we will be replaying that in future episodes, and I will see you all back here next time. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stackelhouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.